Clan of Embers, Apostasy, written and read by Jack Shilkaitis. Cover artwork by Igor Kiriluk. Literary editing provided by Harry DeWolf. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 1. Tokara ducked beneath a wooden rafter. In the darkness, he nearly collided with the beam before seeing it just inches from his face. Jinsu, who was behind him, wasn't so fortunate. "Keep up now, Fenari," Master Fushi told them. Easy for you to say, Tokara thought. Godling's eyes were sharper at night than a Fenari's. "How many heretics came in here?" asked Jinsu, rubbing his forehead. Fushi scowled at him down his pale, slender nose. "How many did you see?" "2, I think." "I thought I saw 3, Tokara said. Fushi quieted them. "Enough. Whether 2 or 3, it won't matter if they hear you chattering. Remember, you're about to be commissioned. Your performance here matters immensely." They had tracked the heretics to a run-down house in northern Atur, which Tokara suspected had long been abandoned. It had sat as an eyesore at the end of an alley for years, where few took the risk to venture, save the city watch. They had entered through a darkened upstairs window, after spotting the heretics sneaking inside. Tokara prayed to the gods for protection before they continued on, but he was still jittery. They advanced cautiously across the dilapidated floor, some of the boards missing or bowed, creaking under tow. Tokara sensed that something could happen at any moment, but he had prepared for this. Both he and Jinsu had studied in the Temple of the War God since they were boys, and within just a few days they would become full-fledged soldiers in their order, the Samanik. He had no choice but to be prepared. Master Fushi stopped abruptly, squatting down below the rafters. "Listen," he whispered. They squatted down with him, and Tokara even held his breath to stay silent. After a moment, he could hear a muffled discussion downstairs, though it was too difficult to interpret. Fushi led them onward through a slanted doorway, down a brief set of stairs, and into another room. The air seemed more open, and the voices became clearer. At the end of a short corridor, the room curved to the right like a horn, and a faint and distant flicker of torchlight touched the far wall. "They're close," Tokara realized. He heard distinct voices now, speaking the old Fenari tongue. Tokara couldn't understand a word of it, though he recognized the sounds. Upon hearing it, Fushi made a muffled comment under his breath. A curse, Tokara surmised. As they came around the curve of the room, they found themselves on a mezzanine overlooking the ground floor. There were 2 large open windows against the far wall, reaching as high as Tokara's head and as low as his knees, each as broad as the span of his arms. Through the windows he saw tongues of fire, licking and biting at the air. Torchlight, illuminating the lower level and casting shadows on the mezzanine above. Fushi went so far as to lean on the frame of the window, but Tokara and Jinsu didn't venture that close. The room below had been a living space, and from what Tokara could see by the weak flame, it was trashed and crumbling. Tokara saw only 2 heretics there. His eyes must have fooled him before. He tried to get a good look at them, but their hoods blocked the torchlight. Among all the ancient words the heretics spoke, Tokara heard the name of the war god several times. It sounded like a curse coming from their lips. It was strange for them to mention him so much, let alone at all. "What are they saying?" Jinsu asked Fushi. But Fushi didn't answer. He was made of stone as he stared down at the rebels. The flame showed only the outline of his white, scaleless face, but Tokara could already picture the scars that it bore. From what Tokara had heard, and from what he had seen firsthand, the godling had endured more battle and bloodshed than all the warlords combined. What he lacked in comeliness, he made up for with cruelty. Fushi straightened. "Stay here and watch." He drew his sword and extended it out over the lower room. The blade was god steel, a metal that only the gods could forge. Its serpentine edge shimmered and undulated in the torchlight, as though it were a flame itself. He struck its broad side against the sill of the window. The heretics took notice. Alarmed, they circled around, drew their swords, and stood ready to face him. But Fushi was only a diversion. Tokara saw movement among the shadows behind the heretics. 3 figures came out of the darkness, Zinike, godling soldiers superior to Tokara and Jinsu. The torch dropped, snuffed out as it struck the floor. Tokara heard 2 screams. The first came from one of the Zinike, the second from one of the heretics. Blades clashed briefly, but the Zinike prevailed. "Lanterns, you idiots!" Fushi shouted down to his soldiers. He mounted the ledge of the window and dropped down to the lower level, barely making a sound as he did. A lantern was lit, flooding the whole lower room with light. Tokara saw 2 of the Zinike restraining one of the heretics, the 3rd soldier having fallen. He was bathed in blood from a wound in his gut, already dying. A severed Fenari hand lay on the floor. The heretic, whose face was covered in crimson scales, lay there, clutching his arm. He looked up with disgust at the Zinike surrounding him. "That was quick," Jinsu said. "How did the rebels manage to kill a Zinike in the dark?" Tokara thought aloud. "How could they even see? They'd be blinded by the torchlight." Jinsu shrugged. Fushi approached the unwounded heretic, whose arms were being held behind his back. He was a man of orange color, his hair the hue of spring moss, dangling in tatters at his shoulders. "I would welcome you to this city, but it seems you've already made yourselves at home," Fushi said to him. With a pasty-colored hand, he combed a loose lock of his black hair behind his ear. "Atur is an easy place to sneak into, if you know what you're doing. Tell me, how did you breach the wall? I'm just curious." The wounded heretic cried out to his comrade in the old tongue, likely telling him to remain silent. Fushi kicked him in the ribs with such violence that Tokara thought the man would die. "You will speak the tongue of the gods here, blasphemer! I only asked a simple question. How did you breach the wall?" "It came through the gate," said the other, through gritted teeth. "We came right through the gate." "North or south?" "North." "Now they cooperate," Jinsu mentioned to Tokara. "There's no way they made it through the gate unnoticed." "Perhaps at midday, when the traffic is dense," but Tokara was doubtful. Still. Fushi tapped the unwounded heretic on the chest with the point of his sword. "You seem a reasonable fellow," he said. "What is your name and the name of your friend here?" The heretic stammered at first. I am Ruko, and that is Yataki." "Ruko and Yataki," Fushi repeated. "How long do you think I've been tracking you, Ruko? Did you feel my eyes on you when you came through the gate? Before? After?" Ruko held out, clenching his jaw. The Zinike restraining him gave him a shake. He complied. "No. We didn't know we were being watched." Fushi smirked. "I'm surprised. You heretics have always been so elusive. Somehow you always know the right moment to disappear." "Well, not always." "Don't say anything more, brother," Yataki shouted from the floor. Fushi moved with a suddenness that startled even Tokara. He took Yataki by the throat and stood him up. "Do you have something to say?" Fushi asked, holding the edge of his sword against Yataki's throat. "Your gods will fall," Yataki said, adamantly. "The clans will take back from you what is rightfully ours. The rebellion will succeed in freeing our people from—" Fushi wasn't going to let him finish. "Is that all?" Yataki spat on him. Fushi fumed, wiping his face with his sleeve. "Do you know what sin you've committed? I am a child of the gods." He dropped Yataki to the ground, then removed his hood to reveal his face. "My face is an icon of the gods' glory. Yours is merely a vague reflection. That is what makes my kind superior to yours, the difference between human and Phanari." "That is a lie," Yataki said. "The gods are false. They are mortal just as you and I are." "Blasphemy," Tokara fumed. He couldn't understand how one of his own kind could believe such a lie. This man is delusional if he thinks that. Fushi ended the man's life before he could speak another profane word. The corpse fell heavy on the floor. "This is the punishment for all who do not believe," Fushi said. Ruko cringed as he watched his friend die. He looked ready to vomit right at that moment, Tokara thought. Fushi glanced over at him, still standing over Yataki's body. "I'm not one for patience, Ruko. Your friend's blood was needlessly spilled. Defying the gods cannot be tolerated. You Phanari have a place in this world, something that rebels like you seem to forget." He turned toward the mezzanine and waved Tokara and Jinsu down. "Get down here where you can see more clearly." Tokara jumped down first, followed by Jinsu, who stumbled a bit. Down here, Tokara could smell the mixing of blood and sweat in the air. The lantern light touched his light blue scales and his short midnight hair. Fushi parted Ruko's cloak, revealing simple garments of linen and an embossed leather jerkin. A layer of cloth wrapped his feet, similar to what most wore during the warm seasons. A rope at his waist still held his empty scabbard tight to his left hip. The sword, dropped in the scuffle earlier, now lay among the other debris on the floor. "Not too telling, is it?" Fushi quizzed them. He was using this as a lesson for Tokara and Jinsu. Even a common peasant might carry a sword for protection. That's why the heretics use them, because they're relatively inconspicuous. But don't you be fooled by it. He loosed the rope and the scabbard fell to the floor. Patting down Ruko's side with both hands, he removed 2 short blades with curved handles from the leather jerkin. Fushi bent the blades, showing how flexible they were. These aren't very common these days. Rib blades, they're called. We've confiscated so many. It's an assassin's weapon, not truly made for combat. Still, if you don't pay attention, they'll draw these on you and slit your throat without any warning at all. Fushi discarded the blades with a coy smile. He looked Ruko dead in the eye. "Who are you meeting here?" "I'm sure it wasn't just the 2 of you." Tokara was surprised. Perhaps his eyes hadn't fooled him after all. There was no one else. "Then why did you come together? You came from the north, which means... what?" Fushi soon answered his own question. "You're from Entasa, to the north, here to meet with someone from the south, aren't you?" "I won't tell you anything." You were cooperating so well before, Ruko, Fushi sighed. I know how you rebels work, with your hierarchies, your chieftains and lieutenants. The clan cannot function without communication, can it? So who were you delivering a message to? There was no message. Fushi fished through Ruko's pockets. He removed what looked like a stone from the breast pocket inside his cloak. Then what's this? This is a messenger stone, isn't it? He tossed the stone to Tokara. It was round with a flat face, a normal gray rock at first glance, but 3 orange flames were painted on one side of it. Tokara had seen those flames before, a long time ago. Fushi continued his lecture. The flames are the markings of their clan, Yusol Keiji, the clan of Embers. They'll guard those stones with their lives. I've seen a heretic swallow one so it wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. Why? Jinsu asked. Anyone who presents that stone to another clansman will be trusted by them. It's like the emblems you wear to show your disciples of the war god. Only they keep it secret. Why not just paint stones yourself, make your own? Tokara asked. They can tell the difference, apparently, Fushi answered. He turned back to Ruko. So it's clear you were meeting someone here, otherwise you wouldn't be carrying a messenger stone on you. But that's irrelevant now. Whoever they were, they're probably long gone. You've scared them off, I'm sure. He brought his pale, scarred face close to Ruko's. There's one heretic I've been hunting for many years. Perhaps you've heard of him. He goes by the name Erethos. Ruko's eyes widened. Erethos does not exist. He's lying. It's plain on his face, Tokara thought. Tell me where Erethos is, and I will spare your life, Fushi offered. But Ruko wasn't having it. There is nothing to tell. Fushi traced one of his many scars, a long pink one that trailed from the corner of his right eye to his jawbone. This scar was given to me in the name of Erethos. The heretic told me as such before he died. Fushi ordered the Zinite to put Ruko on his knees. He faced Tokara. Tokara, kill this worm. Ruko's eyes jumped to Tokara's face. Tokara? He repeated, as if it meant something to him. Tokara hesitated at the look Ruko gave him, a familiar stare. What are you doing? Fushi asked. Kill this wretch! You're Tokara? Ruko asked. Tokara Talthalosai, he muttered in the old tongue. Talthalos? Tokara knew that name. Jinsu! Fushi growled, giving him a nod. Jinsu came forward to where Ruko was kneeling. He drew his sword and attempted to behead the heretic, but he struggled to break through the bones, taking 5 strokes to finish the job. Master Fushi was infuriated. He ordered the Zinite to dispose of the bodies, and then took Tokara to task. The next time you hesitate, I'll have your right hand fed to the street curs. Do you understand me? In fact, you'll be lucky if you even get another chance to fail me again. His eyes darted to Jinsu. And you need to practice your killing stroke on one of the Maka again. Pitiful the mess you made. Fushi left, immediately followed by the Zinite, who carried the bodies of the dead with them. What was that? Jinsu asked. Why didn't you follow orders? It was as if Ruko was still there on his knees. Tokara turned away. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters, Jinsu said, grabbing Tokara's shoulder. Look, I trust you, but why would you hesitate at an order like that? We're going to be commissioned soon. If Fushi thinks you're in any way... I know. Then tell me why. I'm your friend, Tokara. If you can tell anyone, it should be me. Tokara felt the messenger stone in his hand, stroking the 3 painted flames with his thumb. He looked at me like he knew me. The heretic? He was afraid for his life. Men do strange things before they're about to die. He said a name. My father's name. Taltalos. Tokara's eyes drifted down to the bloody scene of the floor. That man knew my father. How would he know your father? You told me your father was dead a long time ago. He is. My father was a heretic, Jinsu, Tokara said, ashamed to admit it. He was one of them. Jinsu pursed his lips. It doesn't mean anything. You're a disciple of the gods now, a soldier in the war god's army. Who your father was, whether this man knew him or not, it doesn't matter. Tokara looked down at the messenger stone. While Jinsu wasn't looking, he tucked it in his pocket. You're right, Tokara agreed. It doesn't matter.